Hello, everyone. Welcome. You're in the right place. You get to join me in a wonderful talk with Karen Samuelson, who's here today to talk about her book. And I couldn't be more proud to have this opportunity than I am because I have been a fan of hers for decades. And now here she is. So I'm going to take off my banner because we don't need that. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Karen about how to lead a to die for life. And she sent me an early copy of the book. And I feel today like I'm a kid in school who gets to bring my favorite friend to introduce to all my other friends. Because, as I said, I first found Karen many years ago when I heard that she wrote the spiritual self help books for people who wouldn't be caught dead reading a self help book. And one of her books was the Be Happy, Damn It. So just the juxtaposition of the spiritual and the real and the funny is who she is. And when I got a copy of her book, I just decided because I know how to do this on StreamYard and LinkedIn and YouTube, I had to share her because she is not only a best selling author who sold over 2 million books, who is followed by Deepak Chopra, Oprah, Tony Robbins, Jon Stewart, and myriads of others. She's also this incredible soul that when she writes, you're just encouraged to expand your reality. She calls her Substack the stand up philosopher. And I finally realized what she means. She's like a stand up comic, but she brings philosophy, psychology, science, theology, statistics into everything she does. So I'm going to probably effuse over her, but I'd rather just introduce her so that she can tell us why she wrote the book and what she hopes we take away. And you might want to take a pencil if you have one, because what she's going to share today, just in her general conversation, you're going to want to take notes. I mean, the end goal, I hope you get the book. I hope you get the book for all your friends, but you're going to want to learn what she's going to offer today. So, we're going to talk about a to die list. We're going to talk about core values, and I'm going to turn it over to Karen so she can tell you more. Karen, take it away.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate all the very thoughtful things you said. And I'm delighted to be here. And I respect and love your work. I've gotten to know you right back, and you're just very inspiring and wonderful. So it means extra coming from you. And I guess I'm here to talk about my book, Your to Die for Life. And although it has the word die in the title and it is about death, it's really more about life, your life, and how to make it meaningful. And I wrote this book for a couple of reasons. We can talk about that now. Where should I start first, Linda? Do you have any ideas for what I should start?
Yes, I have a whole bunch of ideas, but I guess my joy is to know that I just need to say this about the book. Sometimes you read a book and you feel that it makes an impression. I can't wait for the book to come out. I read it in a PDF. I can't wait for it to come out because I'm going to keep it next to my bed, not like the Bible, but next to the bed where I can turn to a page where morning rituals, afternoon rituals, finding your life's mission, all of those are memos to me as to what to focus on today. So let's start with the end in mind. If people listen, and we've got people on already, I know people will be joining. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring and ask Karen them live. But what I'd love you to start with is what made you write the book and what do you hope people take away from it? And then I have lots more questions for you. So
Okay.
start me where you want.
Okay. Well, I wrote the book for two reasons. One of them is kind of poignant and maybe a little sad, and the other one is more light spirited. So I'm going to start with the light spirited one and then tell you the other one. I wrote this book about death, not because I had a near death experience, but because I had a near life experience. And if you've never heard of a near life experience before, it's because I made up the word, but it needed to be made up because so many of us are having near life experiences. So this is when you're on your phone so much, you're like scrolling, swiping, that you're not fully in your life. You're near your life adjacent, or you're out to dinner with a friend, a loved one, and they're talking, but your mind is like elsewhere. You're thinking about a problem in the future that you want to solve, or a regret from the past. And so again, you're not in your life, you're near your life. That's a near life experience. And then the third kind of near life experience is when you keep saying, someday I will, later, I'll do that later. So you're putting off your life to later and someday. And again, you're not fully in your life now. So that's the first reason. And I realized that I was having near life experiences when my dad died. And that's the other reason why I wrote this book, that my dad's death woke me up to the idea that death is real. I mean, it's interesting. We know death is real, but when someone very close to you that you love passes, you realize life is short. It, like, we say it all the time, but we really have to take it in. We're here and then we're not. And it's up to us to take that here part and make it as meaningful as possible. And so my dad's death was like a wake-up call. He's what got me to realize that I had to stop putting the idea of starting a family off. I kept like swatting that away to like someday. And I was kind of really, I was very sad actually that he would never get to see me as a mother, never get to meet any child I would have. And I also felt like I was working too hard, that I was in beast mode. And that, by the way, is a regret, a comment after researching mortality awareness and everything. A top regret of the dying is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. So my dad's death woke me up to that. And that instead of being in beast mode, I wanted to be in best mode, which is when I was still doing my work that I love, but having more balance and time for meaningful relationships, meaningful experiences, family, all of that. So, and he's why I wrote this book. I really started to realize that his death woke me up. And I did one more thing. I did my first mortality awareness ritual after he died. I read his eulogy. I gave a eulogy for him. And afterwards, I thought about what a eulogy is. You take your life and you sum it up. And I started to think, what would I want my eulogy to be? So I wrote my eulogy as sort of my life mission statement. And it's weird. We have mission statements for businesses, but we don't have mission statements for our lives, and we should. And that's what a eulogy is. It's like your life mission statement. And I know a lot of people might think that writing a eulogy is like has too many creepy crawlies about it. So in my book, I help you to write a eulogy by having a fill in the blank Mad Libs type template that you can do. And I have a lot of different mortality awareness tools in the book that are, I know this might sound strange, but they're actually fun to do. And I can start to share more about them as well. And Linda, if you have any questions, or I could keep talking, but I want to make sure that I'm not talking.
No, I love it. Can you give us the difference between a to-do list and a to-die for list?
Okay. So the other thing I realized after he passed is that to-do lists have a fatal flaw. To-do lists, we have them because we worship productivity. That's how you could get stuck in beast mode. To-do lists are like do. It's like an overdo list. And you could do everything on your to-do list and wind up at the end of your life and feel like you wasted your life, because a to-do list tracks productivity. But the goal of life is not to be productive. The goal of life is to have a meaningful life. So I created something else that I write in the mornings, and it is a to-die list. And a to-die list is about creating habits that are meaningful. So like a to-do list is pick up laundry, and a to-die list is more about like pick up your core values a little. So, and I have a whole system for it that I can also go into.
I wish you would, because your core values are A to G.
Yeah, they go A to G.
Easy to remember. But if you could give us an example of how to look at a core value and then even today put that into your life, just take it into your life and start now. So this is where you may want to take notes.
Okay. So I definitely suggest people write their eulogies, but you don't have to write your eulogy to do the practices in my book. But if you do, what you'll do is you'll look at your aspirational eulogy you, and then you'll look at current you. And if you write your eulogy right, there should be a gap because life is about growing. And you're going to see, okay, how do I get from current me to aspirational eulogy me? And what I have people do is write bridge habits to get there. And that's what a to-die list is about. So if you don't want to write the eulogy, then there's a morning practice that I have people do where you ask yourself, who do I need to become to get everything I want in my life? Or who do I need to become to, and then you think about a struggle that's going on in your life. Who do I need to become to stop fighting with my child or partner or wife or whatever it is? Who do I need to become to write that novel, to go on a marathon, to run a marathon, whatever is a goal of yours? And who do I need to become active in a charity, whatever it is that you want to do? And the answer is going to be a core value. You might have to become more patient, more disciplined, better communicator, better listener, brave, more loving, more kind. And you write that down. And then you think about the habit that you need to attach to it. And then I have people create what I call identity-based habits. And when you attach a core value to a habit, you're more likely to do it. I'm going to give an example. So right now, you have your identity controlling your habits without you even knowing it. If you think you're sloppy, you're going to do the habits of a sloppy person. If you think you're organized, you're going to do the habits of an organized person. So your subconscious kind of running the show there. And your identity is the puppet master of your habits. So if you think you are, then chances are you will do. And there's a whole field of study about identity-based habits and why they work. And one example is a study they did to try to motivate people to vote more. And they took a group of people and they split them into two groups. And the first group, they just kind of motivated them to vote with like taglines and jingles and whatever. And the second group, they gave them identity-based habits and had them think of themselves as voters. I am a voter. I'm a voter. And the group that they trained with identity-based statements were 3 times likely to show up at the polls than the people they just motivated, because who you think you are winds up being what you do. And in fact, before this book, I am a behavioral change expert. I've written a bunch of books on changing behavior, and identity-based habits always work, because if you don't do it, if you've attached a core value that's important to you and you don't do the habit, then you're going to feel what's called cognitive dissonance. So for example, I live here in New York, and I am some kind of stereotypical New Yorker that my driver's license expired and I never got it renewed, so I don't drive. And my friend Danielle lives in Connecticut, and she said, Karen, I'm having a birthday party in Connecticut. Come. And my first thought, admittedly, was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get myself to Connecticut? I don't drive. And I thought, I guess I can't go to her birthday party. But because one of my top core values, and as Linda said, I have 7 that I recommend people use, is loving. And because I know meaningful relationships are important to me from having written my eulogy and just thinking about it, I wrote down, I am a loving person. And so I find a way to get myself to Connecticut. And then I looked at that and I felt it. And I thought, I am a loving person. I'm going to find a way to get to Connecticut. And because you attach a core value, if you don't do it, there's like this tension, this Like it's accountability buddies. Like I want to be loving. I say I'm loving. I'm going to find a way.
And your dogs just loved you on that one. Whoops. I think you
Sorry
muted. That's all right.
because
That's
of
all
the dogs.
right.
And
No problem. I've got a question about identifying yourself. Sometimes I identify myself as an HSP ADD NUT. So, highly sensitive person with ADD who happens to be a little nuts from time to time. But I think you're right that when I identify myself as ADD, it gives me permission to be disorganized, to be late on things. So, how do you help people that have certain mindsets and also feel that everything you're telling us is great, but in their busy, overwhelmed, scheduled life, how do we make time to do the things we know we could, should, and then identify ourselves as that person?
well, I actually think you have to re-identify, even though I got to tell you, if I were coaching you right now, I would say, I don't want you to think of yourself as, I think you said slightly nuts. I don't see you that way. And I don't want you to see yourself that way. So I would even look at some of the negative beliefs that you have about yourself and figure out how you can rejigger them so they're not negative anymore. So, example, like if I am sloppy and I want to be organized, I would tell myself I am an organized person. And so I, you know, clean my apartment every day or whatever it is, whatever the habit would be. And if you immediately feel a disconnect with the word organized, what I have people do is think about times they were organized first, and then also say the following sentence: the old me wasn't organized, the new me is organized. So that way you're more likely to embrace it. And just keep repeating it: I am organized, I am organized. And then you will be. And so here's an example from my own life. Or find a core value that you know you believe that you are. And then that could help you to become more organized. If it isn't the word organized, if that is a problem with you. So the example is, after my son was born, I had my pregnancy weight, but I kept calling it pregnancy weight until my son was 2 years old. When, if I were honest with myself, it wasn't pregnancy weight. It was my I eat too much crappy food weight, because I was eating whatever my son was eating. I was eating the cheddar cheese goldfish, the macaroni and cheese, the pizza. And I kept calling it my pregnancy weight, and I knew I had to eat better. And then one day I was on the phone with my publishing house, and they had sent me advance pages for a book that I'd written that had photographs and illustrations in it. And I noticed I could see the images through the pages. So I called them up and I was like, we need to get thicker paper. It needs to be toothier. And I realized as I was talking, I realized that I value the core value of discerning. I was saying to them what I needed the paper to be. And I thought, I am a discerning person. And then I realized I value discerning, but I'm not discerning about my food choices right now. A discerning person would not like eat cheddar cheese, goldfish or mac and cheese and pizza the way I was eating it. So I used the word discerning because I knew that was one I totally valued. And I wrote down the following: I am a discerning person, and so I eat healthy foods. And then when I looked at the foods, I thought, would a discerning person eat that goldfish? No. Would the discerning person eat? And so I used that to motivate myself to do the habit. And it was a window in. And during that time period, I wound up losing 20 pounds in 3 months. And I credit using identity-based statements. It's basically how you put it together is you create an I am and so I do statement. That's the template. And that's how you create your identity-based statements.
I love that. I love the fact that there can be a new me. Even at 78, we can start a new chapter. I don't think discernment was ever one of my core values, but I think I need to add it because it brings in the ability to focus and to, I mean, even when you mentioned one of your chapters, clearing out the clutter, it gives me an opportunity to hold up something that I usually put down again for another day and discern whether I need it again. And also, I wanted you to talk about something. I was going to talk about this at the beginning, but could you tell us a little bit about Aristotle's G spot?
Okay, sure. I actually mentioned, I'm sorry, the dogs are in the
That's,
background. I mention Aristotle a lot in the book. I love Aristotle.
I know.
And let me make sure the dogs, okay. So, Aristotle, in fact, I actually credit Aristotle for inspiring me to write this book because I read Aristotle and he said that you don't know if you've lived a good life until you're on your deathbed. And he also said to begin every project with the ends in mind and then reverse engineer it and figure out how to get there. So I thought about that. And that's why I started to reverse engineer. That's why I wrote the eulogy and then reverse engineered how to get there. And Aristotle also said that all of us have the same end goals for our life, no matter where we're from, Toledo, Timbuktu, Toronto, wherever we're from, we all have the same end goal. And that is to learn lessons that help us to become our best possible self. And he said the problem, well, the reason why a lot of people are unhappy is they have the wrong end goal for their life. They think the end goal for their life is to become the richest person on the planet or to become the sexiest person on the planet or to have like the largest social media following on the planet. And he said that if you make that your end goal for life, these superficial things that have to do with like ego, status, power, money, beauty, fame, fortune, when you get to the end of your life, you're going to be mighty disappointed because you've chased the wrong rabbits. And he said that it's always about learning lessons that help you to grow into your best possible self. He called it the education of your soul. And he said that the soul is the most important thing to try to pay attention to growing and keeping it thriving, not your ego, not your body, not that. And so, in a way, this is what I said in the book, the soul is your G spot for happiness. That's what I read. I mean, Aristotle didn't necessarily say that,
There
but I
we
think
that
he,
was your
he heard it. He'd be like, okay.
I love it. I love it. And the way you put everything in terms of, and you also have something about what do I need to know that I don't want to know. So
Yes, yes.
give me a little hints, give us a little hints on if we don't want to know it. There's of course
Yes.
reasons that we don't want to know it. We're avoiding it. We're scared of it.
Oh,
The baggage is
it's
so big.
true. Yes, that's what happens. So what happens is I I feel like a lot of times we're living on autopilot. That's part of the problem of having near life experiences. You're just like on autopilot. And so to get out of autopilot, I feel we need more time in contemplation. And I do recommend journaling a lot. And one of my favorite core values, the other one is to be authentic, because one of the top regrets of the dying is I wish I had been more true to myself, that I hadn't been, pummeled by society's expectations, that I live true to myself. So when we're on our phones all the time, we're distracted, we're busy with so much noise and running from one thing to the next. We don't know what we need to know. So I suggest that we journal and do this kind of regularly, which is, what do I need to know that I don't want to know? And I feel sometimes when we journal, we go in thinking about what we want to write about, but some of the insights that we need are buried a little, and you have to kind of dig around a little. And I have done that. What do I need to know that I don't want to know? And something will pop up. I'm like, oh, wait, I need to have that conversation with so and so about this thing or whatever it is, or I need to know this about myself that I'm doing this. So I recommend that as a journaling prompt.
I love it because when I do journal, and sometimes I don't let myself journal because I know if I journal, I'm going to get to some truths that I might want to stay too busy to ignore. And there's a quote you have in here that specifically spoke to me a little bit. The internet ensnares, and we're on the internet, so it's a little catch 22 ish, but the internet, but I find that one of my bad habits is my reels. That's kind of like my mindless activity. And after I do it, I feel guilty. And what you said is the internet ensnares more than it frees. iPhones tether rather than liberate. Social media isolates rather than connects. We are servants to the beep, the buzz, and the blink, disconnecting from what really matters. And then, of course, you quote the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Doesn't everyone have access to that? And you said Rinpoche talks about active laziness and being unconscious living corpses. So, as someone who resonated with that guiltily, I'd love your coaching on that, not just for me, but for anybody else who may feel the same.
I actually, as you said that, active living corpses is sort of like having near life experiences. That's just how Rinpoche, I guess, saw it. And I also, in that same area of the book, I quote Milan Kundera, who I absolutely love, and he wrote a book called Slowness, which ironically, it's a short book, and I read it like in a night. I sped read through the book Slowness. It was such a great book. And he says that we're so busy running around, again, like this thing about contemplation, we don't take time for contemplation. And he says that if you want to forget something, and you're walking down the street and something that you don't want to think about occurs to you, to try to forget it, you might literally speed up your steps, because I don't want to think about it. And you speed up your steps. But if you want to remember something, like what was that thing again, you will just kind of naturally slow down your steps. And you're like, oh yes, I need to pick up blueberries or whatever it is. And so we need to slow down, is what Milan Kundera was writing about. So I think that we also need to slow down, because a lot of our choices are made because it's about instant gratification. It's about impulse. We react instead of respond. So we need to slow down. And so I have different various, what I call speed bumps in the book, to help people to slow down so they make more intentional choices in the moment and in a busy day. So I have a bunch of different speed bumps that I recommend people use.
Which is why I think everybody should get the book, so that they have it as a constant reminder, and they can just arbitrarily open the book and find something they're supposed to remember that day. And the other thing I love that you talk about is because for many years I was always a spiritual person, but I don't know how many people listening remember Groucho Marx when he put to, you might remember when he did You Bet Your Life on TV. And if somebody mentioned the magic word, a duck would come down. So for many years, that duck for me was spiritual. If a client mentioned spiritual, I could talk about spirituality, but otherwise it was too woo woo, too booga booga, as my family says. And you distinguish between being woo woo and having just enough woo. And you also resonate with the people that don't woo at all. So when you talk about choosing your soul over your shoulds, could you elaborate on that for either the no woo woo or woo woo people, in whatever words you want to use?
Sure. I actually have a whole chapter about, because I think it's, if we're going to talk about death and dying, whether or not, what we think we're here for and what we think might come next or not. So I have a whole chapter where I kind of explore, do you believe in a soul or a core self? And I'm sort of, I waver, as Linda said. I'm kind of somewhere, I could think of myself as spiritual logical, or instead of being woo woo, I'm just one woo. But it doesn't even matter what if you believe in a soul or core self. If you believe in a soul, then you want to learn your karmic lessons now, so in case there is a next life. And, so you're not constantly in soul school trying to learn that lesson until like 100,000 lives later. Like, you want to learn it in this life. And if you just believe in a core self, you're going to want to learn lessons that help you become your best self too. So either way, to make it your best life, you're still going to. So in a way, I came down to, it doesn't even matter if you believe in a soul or a core self. But no matter what you call it, you have to pay attention to it, because I believe that the you-ier you are, the happier you will be. So the you-ier you make your life with, your you-ier career, your you-ier relationships, that you have to be true to yourself. That's where the core value authentic is. And again, that comes up so much in research, that the more you live true to who you really are, express yourself authentically, live authentically, the happier your life. So I think that's answers your question. Yes.
It does. And I'm an internal family systems therapist. And Dick Schwartz at IFS talks about self, capital S self, as having the qualities of calm, compassionate, clarity, a lot of the core values that you're talking about. And the way I look at it is we all have a healthy self. We have these parts, our ego parts that take over. But our goal is to be more self led. And for those who are more woo woo, I connect self to the God in you or the universe in you or the Buddha nature in you. But I love the fact that what you're talking in the book about is how to, because I just didn't just find this somewhat life changing, it was also life recalibrating, where I could take a look at my values, I could take a look at what I was doing. And even when I was doing more reels, I was more conscious of it so that I could look at the clock a little bit and maybe try not to do that. But you also, in everything that you do, you bring such joy with it. You said in your book that you read Irma Bombeck. And for those of us old enough to remember Irma Bombeck, she was great. She was a great humorist, wise writer, and that's what you are. So, how do you bring so much joy into everything that you're doing? Talk a little bit about
Well,
it.
well, thank you. Somewhat wired. I've always liked humor and realized I actually gave a TED talk called "Fun as a High Performance Fuel," and I think of fun as meditation on steroids. There's even studies on that they gave two different groups of people. Two different kinds of videos. One were fun videos and one were like serious videos. And after the people watched the fun videos, they were better able to solve puzzles than the people that watched the sad ones. It kind of loosens you up a bit. So in fact, one of my core values is fun because I looked at the top regrets of the dying. And a lot of the regrets of the dying had to do with, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had allowed myself to have more fun. So there are I reverse engineer all the top regrets of the dying and figured out which core values would help to make sure that you're slathering your life with like regret proof sealant. You don't get those things. And I recommend people find that balance and even have core values. Sorry about the dogs. Based on I am fun, and and then you schedule them. So I schedule fun things. I am fun, and I put that down, and I make sure I have fun things to do every week.
Love that because I definitely more fun. And in that journaling and in that looking at yourself, I think a lot of people don't meditate, don't journal because then they have parts that feel guilty or have regrets or should on themselves. And I love what you said about coulda, woulda, shoulda, shut up.
You had trouble. Shut up.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, shut up is one of your,
Put that in.
yeah, is what
With the coulda, woulda, shouldas.
we got to stop.
Yeah.
And
What can you do now?
Right. You talk about not self-flagellation, but self-awareness.
Yes.
And I think so many of us self-flagellate, which has nothing to do with the G-spot and is not what we're talking about. But it's beating up on yourself in a way that causes you to focus on your regrets instead of focus on your joy. So
and focus on what you can do next.
right.
So I have a bunch of tools in the chapter that's literally called coulda, woulda, shoulda, shutta, uppa, where you make peace with your past. And I actually have a bunch of tools in the book and insights about having closure on some of the things from your past, because I believe we repeat what we don't repair. That's like a kind of a known saying, which I absolutely love. So I help people to kind of like gently, lovingly, self-awarely, if that's an adverb now is, look at how some of the challenges of their past have maybe by accident created negative dominant beliefs in their lives, and how to let go of that. And also to dig around in whatever happened and find the golden nugget of insight so you can make sure it doesn't happen again. So in my chapter, coulda, woulda, shoulda, shutta, uppa, I have like two simple tools that I could say right now. One is just the single word forward. If I find myself thinking a thought where I'm kind of beating myself up about something, I ask myself, have I thought this thought before? Have I chewed the flavor out of this thought? Have I learned everything I need to know about this thought? And then if I have, is this thought helping me move forward or backwards? So if I realize I've chewed the flavor out of it, I just tell myself the single word forward. And then I try to think one action I could do right in that moment to move forward. Or I tell myself, if I'm in a more playful, fun mood, I just tell myself this word, and I do it I do it next, like I'm some working at a deli counter or something, like, because I'm annoyed with myself, even like, why do I keep thinking this? Enough already. So I just tell myself next, and that kind of humor of it kind of snaps me out of it. Like, oh gosh, why do I keep like thinking this thought again and again? So those are just two quick things, but I go into it in a more philosophical way in the book as well.
Exactly. And another word that you coined is not to look with hindsight, but with
Oh,
kind sight.
hindsight. Yes,
I love that.
yes.
I
Oh,
don't think
thank
we
you.
do that enough to
Yes.
really have compassion for ourselves, what we're learning, the mistakes along the way.
Because
And
we're here to learn. That's what Aristotle says, and I believe him, and that's why I love Aristotle, and that's why I like, fangirl him throughout the book. But Aristotle says we're here to learn lessons to help us to grow into our best possible self. So if you made a mistake, that's part of the program, that's part of life, but learn from it and then grow from it, growth mindset.
exactly. And when people look at all the things that they would be doing and say we don't have enough time, and I'll use the quote you said of Seneca, I learned all these people from you, that if we paid attention to our lives, we'd have enough time to do everything we want. So could you elaborate on that a little?
Well, I believe that a lot of times we find ourselves saying, "Oh, I didn't have time to do it. I'm too busy. I didn't have time to do it." And that's sort of like the adult equivalent of the dog ate my homework, because we can find time. We just have to be more discerning about how we use our time. There's my core value of discerning. And that's why in my book, You're to Die for Life, I have a life audit where I ask a bunch of prompts and you find out where you have your time leaks, where you have your happiness leaks, and help you to reprioritize things so you can find time. If once you're in touch with your core values, you find time. And I even have another tool, a speed bump tool, because I talk a lot about how we're rushing. And a speed bump tool is my greater than sign. Should I tell them about my greater than
Please,
sign?
I was going to bring it up. Yes, let them know what it is. It's a little, you tell them more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A greater than sign is for math. It looks like a little sideways triangle. The little point is less than. In this part, the larger triangle part is greater than. And if you're in the moment and you think, oh, I'm so busy, you ask yourself, which is more important to me? Which is greater than? And then that helps you decide, uh, watching Netflix or calling my friend who I know is going through a divorce, which is more important to me? Which is greater than? And, or if the alarm rings in the morning and you promised yourself you're going to go to the gym, which is more important? 30 minutes of sleep or living 10 years longer because I'm working out and taking care of myself. The greater than sign is a speed bump, and it helps you to get in touch with your core values in the moment, in real time.
Great. And talking about the life audit, I took it. I wrote the questions, wrote the answers. And one of the questions is, how do I waste my time? What would I rather be doing? What are the daily tasks I could do to support my goals? How much time do I spend on refreshing activities, all of which I need to focus on? And then you ask the question for me to ask, am I being productive or just busy? So can you maybe talk about what it means to be busy versus productive and how we sabotage ourselves that?
The dogs are barking again. I so apologize. Um, it's the difference, I guess, between beast mode and best mode. Like beast mode, you think you're being, but you're just running around. You don't have enough balance. And it's the difference between, I guess, the to-do list and the to-die list, making sure that you're finding time for things that truly matter. That's having meaningful relationships, meaningful experiences, being of service, those types of things, rather than just being busy for the sake of like worshiping productivity.
Great. And there's a few words that you mentioned that I'm learning: hedonia, eudonia, and entelechy. So very quickly, share what that means, if you would.
Okay, well, those are, so there's hedonia and eudaimonia, and then there's entelechy, which is over here. So, and by the way, I write funny. So if this sounds complicated out loud, it really isn't in the book. It's
I
very
need
simple.
to remind you, she is very funny.
Yeah.
Everywhere I can't wait to get the book so I can highlight it, because otherwise in every paragraph you can find something. It should be its own meme. And I'm going to share some of those at the end, but she's very funny. That's why she's the stand-up philosopher. You're going to laugh while you.
So, so you, oh, okay, I'll start it this way. Aristotle says the reason why so many people are unhappy is they confuse pleasure for happiness. And pleasure is more like instant gratification. And he calls that hedonia. That's from his time. And it's hit and run joy. It's impulse. It's like eat the donut, blurt that mean thing. It's just hedonia. Hedonism, I guess, is what it could translate, but it's a little more a bigger swath than just heathenism. And then there's eudaimonia, which is what some people call fulfillment. And so eudaimonia is when you struggle a little bit now, but you enjoy more later. Like you go to the gym, but you get more later. And hedonia is more like enjoy now, but struggle more later. So a lot of the choices in life is about, do you want to enjoy now, struggle more later, or struggle now and enjoy more later?
And and you say it. And till and
Entelechy is, that's about your unique little seed that's inside of you. And that again has to do with finding out what makes you youier. And he says that an oak tree seed will always grow into an oak tree. It will never grow into like an umbrella or a pizza. So you have something in you, and it can stay small or it can grow into a bigger you, but you have to water that seed, that entelechy seed inside of you. And the more you do things that is true to your core self, your specific you, the more happy your life will be, the more meaningful your life will be. That you have to make sure that you're growing into your highest self. So you might have in the case of the oak tree, it could be a mighty oak or it could be a little bonsai oak. So you don't want to be a bonsai you want to grow your entelechy seed to your highest self level. And I explain how in the book.
fabulous. And part of that has to do with, you talk about finding your why, finding your purpose, leaving a legacy that has you learn from what you've lived through and sharing it. So purpose, legacy, and entelechy, explain a little more, please.
Okay. So I believe that the purpose of your life is to find and do the purpose of your life. And that's also why you need contemplation and you need that slow time to figure out, because a lot of people are like, what is my purpose? And I actually can't answer that for you, but I can tell you like tools and prompts, which I give in the book to help you to figure it out. But that's up to you to figure out. But when you know the purpose of your life, you can create a more meaningful life. And usually a lot of purpose in life has to do with turning your pain into purpose or turning your passion into purpose. But it doesn't have to be large. You don't have to have this grand legacy. Like you don't have to cure cancer. A lot of it has to do with your core values and living by your core values and just being kind and being loving and being brave and giving back or mentoring somebody or sharing something that you've learned along the way. So in the book, I talk not just about the big legacy, but what I call mini ripples, like the little ripples of life, where you put your like was here flag on the planet by helping people in small ways. And the stories that people share about you, if other people are giving your eulogies, they're not going to, a eulogy is not like reading a LinkedIn profile out loud. It's usually stories. And usually stories where you tapped into a core value and it touched somebody in a meaningful way. And a lot of life has to do with meaningful relationships, meaningful experiences, and being of service.
And people can do that in their families, with their children, with their parents, with their friends, in the workplace. You can leave a legacy of love just by showing up with kindness. And that can be one of your core values. But when you think about the legacy that then informs your present, it helps you make different choices and be more
Yes.
aware.
And that's where the to die list, that's what you write down. You make sure every day is not just like answer emails. It's like, how are you going to show up for the people you love, and put that on your to die list? That's just as important. If you know somebody's sick, call them. How are they doing? You think about the people that you love and you reach out in some way, or you strengthen your relationship by connecting in some way, having the difficult conversation if that's needed, or just thinking of habits. Sometimes you add extra things on because you think about the people that are important to you, and you create things that you want to do to make them feel loved and supported.
I love that. And I'm also going to suggest that we do these things now because we keep thinking we have all the time. And in your chapter on taking time to take control of your life, you have many different, the sleepwalking, anti-sleepwalking egg, the Eisenhower matrix, say no, stop and swap. But you also talk about the monthly marble jar. So can you explain what that is, please?
Sure. And by the way, if people think I'm giving away the whole book, I'm not giving away the whole book. There's so much more in the book, but Linda's asking very good questions. So these are my
That's because I want them to know that this is in the book, but so eloquently written that you go back and you hear it now, you hear it once and you think, oh, I got it. But when you have the book and you actually do the exercises and you have it to go back to look at, to ear, dog ear, to underline, you're going to make it part of your habits. So the reason I wanted to share this so much is because she is so wise, she is so giving, but you can get the book. In fact, I'm going to put the book right here because they can go order it as we're talking and go to Amazon. You can take a screenshot and order the book. It actually comes out on Tuesday, the 22nd, I think, right? So even if you're replay, you can get it. But I'm going to leave this up for a little bit while Karen continues it.
Okay. So these are my marble mortality jars. And what I did was I started it, I guess, like a year or so ago. And I counted how many months I have left to live if I live to 100, because I promised my son I'd do everything possible to live to 100. He asked me to live to 200. I bargained him down to 100. He accepted my counter offer. So I figured out, and I forgot the exact number it was because I started it a while ago, but let's just say 430 months left to live. And then that alone, that number was very much of a wake up call, but that wasn't the whole exercise. I then went out and I bought 500 marbles from Amazon. I bought them in bulk. And then this was really kind of a wake up too. When the marbles came and there were 500, I immediately had to remove like 70 marbles. And that was also a wake up that I really need to make sure I'm using my time, my life, what's here, as best as possible. And then I put my marbles in this jar. That's my future. And this jar, that's my past. I don't know if you could see. And I started a ritual where the first of every month, I take out a marble and I hold it in my hand and I think, this is a piece of my life. That's a piece of my life. What did I do with that piece of my life last month? And the first time I did this, I got to tell you, I kind of was like, I don't remember. What did I do last month? I had a dentist appointment. I couldn't really fully remember, which is just a sign that I was not living intentionally. One second, the dogs again. So anyway, so what I did was the next month I decided I was going to be very intentional, and I picked a marble out and I looked at him like, okay, you're going to be my next month marble. I'm going to have good things to report to you. And then I went and I thought ahead of that month. Okay, I'm going to plan. I'm going to go dancing with my friend Alyssa, we love to dance together. I'm going to go to the theater. I'm going to do this with my partner Howard. I'm going to do this with my son. And I started to pack my month knowing that my mortality marble jar is like my accountability buddy, that I wanted to have good things to report to it.
Because when I told you when I thought of doing it, first of all, I'm a lot older than you, so I will have fewer marbles. And then, and you said not to call myself nuts, but my children probably thought I was losing my marbles half the time. But it gives you something to actually take a look at. And when you said you look at the marble with the intention of creating the next month, that feels better to me than just watching the time go by. So when we set the intentions of what we want the month to look like, that makes it so much different. So there's so much more we could talk about. Let me ask you, if you get to the farther on in your life, what would your future self whisper to you about your current self?
Well, right now, my jokey answer is get the dogs CBD bites so they can stay calmer when I'm doing these interviews. So I was Googling CBD because my dogs were like pretty barky this morning. I literally went on Amazon. So sorry about the dogs.
It was a joke.
But second of all, I really think my favorite core value is love and meaningful relationships. And I kind of knew that going into writing the book, but after writing it, I really know that.
And I know you've written dozens of books. And I think you said that some of the people who have read this ahead of time say it's probably your best one. And I've read several of your other books, but this is a masterpiece. What do you think makes this your best one? What?
You know what? I think it's mortality awareness. I never thought this before, but I'm sorry. But I think mortality awareness made this my best book, because when you realize that we're here and then we're not. I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. The dogs again. I think I got braver, and I really wanted to show up. There's the word you here. I just showed up more as me, more vulnerable. It makes you want to live life more vulnerably, you know?
I love the word you-er. Great word. One of the many you make up. But if everyone who's listening, and we're going to talk about how to catch Karen and where to get her gifts, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. What's the one thing after they've read the book, and there's so many, I couldn't even imagine a one thing, but what's the one thing if they did that said, gee, I'm glad I got this book next to my nightstand?
Could you ask that again? I'm sorry.
What's the one takeaway, if there's one takeaway that you hope your readers get from this?
You're mortal, quit dawdling.
I love that. I love that. It isn't even in the book like that, but I told you she talks in sound bites and quips. Put that on your mirror. What did you say? Quit dawdling and
Yeah, you're mortal, quit dawdling. Get to it.
I love it. I love it. So not only are we going to get to it, but we're also going to keep in touch with you. So I want you to talk about some of the things that people can.
Okay, so on my website, I have a vitality quiz. What's your vitality age? That's free to take, because I believe that, it's never too late to rejigger your life, and that you need to stay, in touch with your vitality, which is different than, health, and it's different than what your age is. It's like we can all have young, youthful vitality ages where we still have that life force in us to live at our best level possible. So take my quiz over at you're2dieforlife.com. And then my last name is Salmonson. And everybody mangles it and says Salmonson. I can't even pronounce it wrong because I know how to say it right. But they're always going Salmonson. I'm always going, not salmon, not salmon. So not salmon is usually how you can find me on social media. Not Salmon on Instagram, on Facebook, and as you can see here, Not Salmon on Substack. That's where I have my stand-up philosophy. And then my book is You're to Die for Life. And I also have a free end-of-life planner called Over My Dead Body that helps you to write your end of life planner. That's free on my yourtodieforlife.com site. And then my book is available everywhere books are sold, on Amazon and, Target and Barnes and Noble, bookstores everywhere. So check it out.
Karen has helped me create my Substack, because when you talk about living with purpose, and I knew Karen as my idol, as this person that I would, when you talk about people who you'd like to be like, you are one of those people for me. And I put my information on Substack and she's putting hers. And we're encouraging you to find an avenue for your legacy to kind of, I jokingly say that I started my Substack so that my daughter wouldn't have to throw out all my writings and I would have to haunt her. So those are posted and Karen's helped me with that. But you can reach us both on our Substack accounts. And I want to put the Amazon link one more time, because you can order her book today. And I think, Karen, maybe in a month or two, we can do another one of these for people that have actually read the book and have specific questions that they want to ask you about. So we can think about talking about that. But for the people that are here, I hope you got out of it all that we intended. For the people that are going to be showing up for the replay, you can always contact Karen or me. And from our hearts to yours, we can create a To Die For life. And Karen's writing is really like, it's kind of like a warm hug, but with lessons that enrich your soul, enrich your spirit, woo, non woo. And you come away having learned so much, not about just life and history and philosophy and science and statistics, but you learn more about yourself. And she helped me many years ago on what she called a pillage and conquer experience, where we looked at our behaviors, because she is a behavior, what did you call yourself? Behavior change specialist. Say that
Yeah,
again.
behavioral change expert. Yeah.
And a mortality awareness movement, right? That's what
Yeah.
you're, the
I'm a
mortality.
pioneer in I'm trying to get people to talk about death. It's like the last taboo topic. And I think our lives get better when we really embrace the fact that life is finite and we live richer, braver, more authentic lives. I do believe that happens.
And writing my eulogy was helpful in terms of what I hoped people would say about me. And then I think I also went to chat, because I write in chat a lot. They helped me come up with some epithets, because you said that's, what did you call it? A shorthand version, like a mission statement?
It's like a tagline for your life, but it's like, for me, my core value, my top core value is love. So my epitaph or my tag is like, love is the bread and butter of my life. So again, in the moment, as a speed bump, if I have a choice, I remind myself of that, and it makes me make more, it inspires me to make more loving choices.
Great. I think
So,
mine, which was for me, and I think for everybody, is that we're all channels of love and beacons of light. And we can be that and we can share it. And when we have the honor to meet our idol and can share it with the world, this was so special for me.
oh,
So we,
thank you.
we
By the
did
way,
it.
everybody, I'm going to do a quick plug for Linda. She is a beautiful writer, and she writes. The name of your Substack is Heart
Mine
Centered.
is Heart Centered Connections.
Heart Centered, and she is heart centered. I mean, her asking me to do this, and how she asked me, and who she shows up as in my life in general. Started as client, and I helped her, but now she's a heart centered friend. She's just lovely. So read her. She writes beautifully. Read her Substack.
Thank you so much. Well, sending love to you, Karen. Thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for all of you who are watching at any point along the way. Let us know if you have any questions. Go get the book. I'm going to put it up one more time. Go to Amazon. If you forget, just go to the To Die For Life. Order it today. You'll be so glad you did. It's coming next Tuesday. All right. We're going to send love to everybody. And let me see if there were any more comments in the chat. Thank you very much. And Jan said she loves living true to yourself. And if that's what the takeaway is how to be the most you, and to get to the end of your life knowing that you lived your best life, you will have hit your G spot and go out with joy. So we'll end on that. Anything more you want to say, Karen?
No, just thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. God bless and see you soon. Bye for now.